It was a typical day out on the water. The sun was shining and the sea was calm. I was out on my fishing boat, just like I had been countless times before. I had been a fisherman for many years and had never experienced anything out of the ordinary while out at sea. But that was about to change. As the day went on, I began to feel a strange presence. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but something just didn't feel right. I tried to shake off the feeling and focus on my fishing, but it lingered in the back of my mind. As the sun began to set, the sky turned a beautiful shade of orange and pink. It was a breathtaking sight, but the feeling of unease still lingered. I decided to call it a day and head back to shore. But as I started my boat's engine, something strange happened. The engine sputtered and died. I tried to start it again, but it wouldn't budge. I checked everything I could think of, but I couldn't find anything wrong with the engine. That's when I heard it, a faint whisper on the wind, like someone was trying to speak to me. I couldn't make out what it was saying, but it sent chills down my spine. I looked around, but there was no one in sight. Suddenly, a thick fog rolled in, engulfing my boat. I couldn't see more than a few feet in front of me. The feeling of unease turned into full-blown fear. I tried to start the engine again, but it was no use. That's when I saw it. A figure, shrouded in mist, appeared in front of me. It was a woman, with long, flowing hair and a white dress. She looked like she was from another time. I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. The woman didn't say anything, but she beckoned me to follow her. I hesitated, but something in her eyes made me feel like I had no choice. I stepped off my boat and onto the woman's ghostly vessel. As soon as I did, the fog cleared and the sea turned rough. The woman disappeared, leaving me alone on her boat in the middle of the storm. I tried to steer the boat back to shore, but it was no use. The waves were too strong, and the wind was too fierce. I was trapped on the boat, at the mercy of the storm. As the night wore on, I began to hear strange noises, creaking and groaning sounds, like the boat was about to fall apart. I tried to keep calm, but the fear was overwhelming. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A ghostly figure appeared on the water, moving towards me. It was a man with a beard and tattered clothing. He looked like a pirate from another time. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The pirate ghost boarded my boat and started to approach me. I was frozen with fear, unable to move. Suddenly, the woman ghost appeared again, standing between me and the pirate. They seemed to be having some sort of argument, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, they both vanished into thin air. The storm began to calm down and I was able to start my engine again. I made it back to shore safely, but I was never the same after that experience. I still go out to sea to fish, but I always keep an eye out for any signs of the paranormal. I may never know what happened. After that terrifying experience, I couldn't shake off the feeling that there was something more at play than just a random encounter with ghosts. I decided to do some research and find out if there were any legends or rumors about haunted seas in the area. It didn't take long for me to find out that there was. In fact, a local legend about the seas I had been fishing in. It was said that a group of pirates had fought a fierce battle in those waters many years ago. The legend went that the pirates had buried their treasure somewhere in the sea and that their ghosts still roamed the waters, protecting their treasure and haunting anyone who dared to come close. At first, I didn't want to believe in such things, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. The woman and the pirate ghost that I had encountered could have been the ghosts of the pirates who had fought in that battle. I started to become obsessed with the legend and decided to investigate further. I talked to locals and fishermen who had been in the area for years, and many of them had their own stories of encounters with ghosts and strange happenings out on the water. One fisherman told me a story about how he had seen a ghostly ship in the distance, with no one on board. Another person had heard strange whispers on the wind, just like I had. And yet another had seen a ghostly figure walking on the water, just like the woman ghost I had encountered. The more I heard these stories, the more I became convinced that the legend was true, and I couldn't help but wonder if there was some truth to the buried treasure as well. Despite my newfound obsession, I still went out to sea to fish. I couldn't let my fear control me. But I was always on the lookout for any signs of the paranormal. One day, while out on the water, I saw something glinting in the distance. It looked like a treasure chest, just like the ones you see in the movies. I couldn't believe my eyes. Could it be the treasure that the pirates had buried all those years ago? I steered my boat towards the treasure, my heart racing with excitement. But as I got closer, the feeling of unease returned. Was it really worth risking my life for a treasure that may or may not even exist? I decided to turn back and head for shore. As I did, I heard a faint whisper on the wind. It was the same whisper that I had heard before. This time, I could make out what it was saying. "Leave the treasure be," the whisper said, "or suffer the consequences." I didn't need any more convincing. I turned my boat around and headed back to shore as fast as I could. I didn't want to anger the ghosts of the pirates any further. From that day on, I stopped my obsession with the legend of the haunted seas. I still went out to fish, but I never looked for the treasure again. And I never encountered any ghosts or paranormal activity again, at least not to the same extent as before. But I couldn't help but wonder if the legend was true, and if the treasure was still out there, waiting to be found. Despite my fear and fascination with the legend of the haunted seas, I continued to go out on my boat to fish. I couldn't let my fear control me, and I had bills to pay. One day, as I was out on the water, the feeling of unease returned. It was stronger than ever before, and I couldn't ignore it. I decided to head back to shore, but as I turned my boat around, I saw something that made my blood run cold. It was a ghostly figure, floating just above the water. It was a woman with long hair and a white dress, just like the woman ghost I had encountered before. She was beckoning me to follow her, just like before. I hesitated, but something in her eyes made me feel like I had no choice. I followed her ghostly vessel, just like I had before. As we sailed on, I tried to speak to her, but she didn't respond. She just kept looking ahead, as if she was on a mission. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something bad was about to happen. Suddenly, the woman ghost stopped her boat in front of a small island. She vanished, leaving me alone on the boat once again. I felt a chill run down my spine as I stepped onto the island. It looked deserted, with no signs of life. But as I walked further into the island, I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. It was a group of ghostly figures, gathered around a fire. They looked like pirates, with tattered clothing and beards. They were chanting something in a language I couldn't understand. I tried to back away, but it was too late. They had seen me, and they started to approach me. I was frozen with fear, unable to move. Suddenly, the woman ghost appeared again, standing between me and the pirates. They seemed to be having some sort of argument, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, they both vanished into thin air. The feeling of fear subsided, and I was able to make it back to my boat and head back to shore. The encounter with the ghosts on the island left me with more questions than answers. Who were those pirates, and why were they haunting the seas? What did the woman ghost want from me? I couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to the legend of the haunted seas than just a ghostly encounter here and there. I needed to find answers, and I knew that I wouldn't find them by just going out to fish. I started to do more research, talking to historians and local experts on the area's history. It didn't take long for me to uncover some interesting information. It turned out that the legend of the haunted seas had some truth to it. There had been a group of pirates who had fought a fierce battle in those waters many years ago. They had buried their treasure somewhere in the sea, and their ghosts were said to still roam the waters, protecting their treasure and haunting anyone who dared to come close. The woman ghost that I had encountered was said to be one of the pirates' wives, who had died during the battle and now roamed the seas with her husband's ghost. Armed with this information, I decided to search for the treasure myself. I knew it was risky, but I couldn't resist the idea of finding the treasure and uncovering the truth behind the legend. I spent weeks preparing for the search, gathering equipment and studying maps of the area. I knew that the treasure could be anywhere in the sea, so I needed to be prepared for anything. Finally, I set out on my boat, determined to find the treasure. I spent days on the water, searching every inch of the sea, but there was no sign of the treasure. Just when I was about to give up, I saw something glinting in the distance. It was a small island, just like the one where I had encountered the pirate ghosts before. I steered my boat towards the island, my heart racing with excitement. As I got closer, I saw something that made my blood run cold. It was a group of ghostly figures gathered around a treasure chest. They looked like the same pirates I had seen on the island before. They were chanting something in a language I couldn't understand. I tried to back away, but it was too late. They had seen me, and they started to approach me. I was frozen with fear, unable to move. Suddenly, the woman ghost appeared again, standing between me and the pirates. They seemed to be having some sort of argument, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. Then the woman ghost turned to me and said, "You have come too close to the treasure. It is not meant for you to find." I tried to plead with her, telling her that I just wanted to uncover the truth behind the legend, but she wouldn't listen. The pirate ghosts started to approach me again, and I knew I had to act fast. I turned my boat around and started to head back to shore. As I did, I heard the pirates' ghostly chants grow louder and more intense. It was as if they were trying to curse me. But I made it back to shore safely, with no sign of the pirate ghosts following me. I knew that I had come too close to the truth, and that they didn't want me to uncover it. Days turned into weeks, and I became more and more obsessed with the legend of the haunted seas. I couldn't stop thinking about the buried treasure and whether it was real or just a myth. I spent all of my free time researching the legend and talking to anyone who had any information. One day, while out on my boat, I noticed something strange on my sonar. It was a large object, buried deep in the seafloor. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw it. Could it be the treasure that the pirates had buried all those years ago? Without hesitation, I set up my equipment and started to dig. It took hours of work, but finally, I saw something glinting in the sand. I brushed away the sand and uncovered a chest, just like in the movies. My heart was pounding as I opened the chest. Inside there were gold coins, jewels, and other treasures. I couldn't believe it. The legend was real, and I had found the treasure. But my joy was short-lived. As soon as I picked up one of the coins, I felt a strange energy coursing through my body. It was like nothing I had ever felt before. Suddenly, I felt a presence behind me. I turned around, and there she was, the woman ghost who had led me to the haunted seas. In the first place, she was smiling at me, but her eyes were sad. "You found our treasure," she said, "but at what cost?" I didn't know what she meant, but I could feel that something was wrong. I looked down at the treasure in my hands and realized that it wasn't worth it. The coins and jewels weren't worth the fear and obsession that had taken over my life. I knew what I had to do. I closed the chest and buried it back in the sand. As soon as I did, the woman ghost disappeared, and the sea became calm once again. From that day on, I tried to go back to my everyday life. I went back to fishing, enjoying the peacefulness of the sea, without fear or worry. I learned that sometimes the things we think we want the most aren't worth the cost. Eventually, I realized that I had to put an end to my obsession with the legend of the haunted seas. It was consuming me, and I was no longer able to enjoy the simple pleasure of fishing. I decided to sell my boat and start a new chapter in my life. But even though I had moved on, I never forgot about my encounter with the ghosts on the sea. It stayed with me, a constant reminder of the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding. Years later, I heard that a group of treasure hunters had come to the area in search of the buried pirate treasure. They spent weeks searching the waters and the nearby islands, but never found anything. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction, knowing that the treasure, if it ever existed, was still hidden away, protected by the ghosts of the pirates who had buried it. Now, whenever I see the sea, I think of the legend and the ghosts that may still roam its waters. And while I may never know the full truth, I am content to let the mystery remain. After all, sometimes the unknown is what makes life truly interesting.